Hello all you gorgeous young things watching. Most of you will be under 80, so we're still classified as middle-aged. Welcome to Over 50, So What? I'm Carol O'Halloran, and we're going to look at more interesting things for 50 plus. Unfortunately, as we age, it's not uncommon for us to develop type 2 diabetes. In Australia, one person every 5 minutes develops diabetes. Today we investigate what we can do to prevent this with credentialed diabetes educator Camilla Barr. Keeping active is a great way to help prevent diabetes, so please join us in the 5-minute fitness after the break. And lastly, we have best-selling author Barbara Pease, who has co-authored several books on relationships. We're going to discuss some of her tips for good, long-lasting relationships. Welcome to Energy for Life. Did you know that 280 Australians every single day are diagnosed with diabetes? That's one every 5 minutes. Today we're going to be speaking with credentialed diabetes educator Camilla Barr. Hi Camilla, and welcome to Over 50 So What? Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Carol. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now the viewers don't know, but you have been on the show as one of these fantastic love stories where people can meet later in life.
Oh, I know. Fantastic story.
Now you only became qualified as a diabetes educator later in life. Would you like to tell people a bit of your journey, your background through nursing and paediatric, and then how you got into diabetes?
Sure. Well, I started nursing back in 1975, so that just tells you a little bit of straight away. And I went into paediatrics because I loved working with children, and that took me a long way through my career. And with that, I learnt to work with children that had diabetes. When I moved to this area, we didn't have a paediatric healthcare system that was large enough to move into it, so I actually had to retrain. So at the age of 62, I retrained as a diabetes educator through the university. So I went back, did a postgrad in that, and then went on to do my credentialed diabetes accreditation, which is another thing again and takes a lot of time. Yeah.
So there you go, viewers. It's never too late to start studying a new career, changing and getting an even more specialised focus in something else, or just taking up a new area of study. To kick off with, can you sort of tell people what diabetes is?
Yes, well, there are different types of diabetes, but if we look at type 2 diabetes, which is the most common, it's around about 90% of the population of those that have diabetes is type 2. It's where the blood glucose levels increase to above normal, and to the point where they either need to have lifestyle changes, medication, or some other sort of intervention.
What's the situation in Australia? Can you give us an overview of what's happening in Australia with diabetes?
Yes, there's it's a tsunami. That's what's happening. We've got a huge number of people diagnosed yearly with diabetes. When I first started nursing, it was always, type 2 diabetes is for the over 60s or 65 age population. Now we're seeing it in younger people as well. So that is now affecting whole families, not just the grandparents. It's affecting whole families. In fact, they're now looking at over 45. If you're obese, overweight, or you have high blood pressure, and over 55, just because you've hit that age mark. Yes.
Now, there is an assessment too you can do on yourself, just to give you a little overview of how much at risk you might be for developing diabetes. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, Diabetes Australia has a wonderful website, and on there they have the Oz Risk tool, and that Oz Risk tool allows you to answer questions about yourself, your age, your lifestyle, and it gives you a score, and at the end of that score you have your risk factor of developing type 2 diabetes.
So what can we do to prevent or to help prevent diabetes as we get older?
Have a look at that risk tool and just see where you're sitting for a start. There's a lot of risk factors that you can change, and there's some that you can't. You can't change your age, for instance. You can't change your DNA and your heritage. You can't change those things. But you can change your lifestyle factors that include physical activity on a daily basis. You can change your diet when we look at things like your carbohydrates, which is a whole new subject, your stress levels, which is another thing that actually can increase your risk factors for diabetes. And we saw that in 2020 when the fires swept through the South Coast.
Can you just explain what we should be doing ourselves as a preventative measure, or,
Yeah, absolutely. So at least a yearly checkup with your GP to have a blood test done, and that blood test will either check your fasting glucose, so before you've eaten anything, and it'll give the doctor a range then of what that should be, or you may have a test called an HbA1c, which is done then every 3 months or every 6 months or annually, depending on what your level is when it comes back.
What are some of the symptoms that occur that may be indicative that you are developing type 2 diabetes?
There are some distinct ones. So if you're suddenly becoming quite thirsty and you're drinking more than you normally would, you're really thirsty, can't seem to get enough in, that you're voiding more, so you're going to the toilet more to urinate, perhaps you're feeling tired and lethargic, perhaps you're feeling tingling in your feet or your legs that you didn't have before, and this can be often noticed at night time after a meal when you're sedentary and you've just had a nice high calorie dinner. Also things like putting on weight or taking off weight. There are other signs and symptoms, but the most common are the running to the toilet and drinking lots of water and the lethargy. So we then find out where we are. Are we at a pre-diabetes stage or a diabetes diagnosis? And your GP will guide you into that. You then will be probably directed to a diabetes educator, such as myself, who will explain what diabetes is and how you can manage it. We'll be looking at your physical activity, we'll be looking at your diet, and you may be sent to a dietitian as well. So between those people, some people actually sent to a physical exercise physiologist as well to get an exercise program. But it will depend on, hello, this is Duchess, it will depend on where you are on the diabetes scheme of things. So whether you've got a very high blood glucose level that needs to be treated straight away, then your GP might put you straight onto medication. Yes.
We've just been joined by Duchess, so you can tell I'm not at home with my ginger pussycat Gizmo. And she's not normally this friendly, so...
Her name suits her. Her name suits her.
Do you want to say anything? So as you can probably tell, we're up in regional New South Wales currently. Well, you wouldn't know it was New South Wales, but we're in a regional area. Now, well, thank you so much for sort of giving us that overview about diabetes, and we'll let the viewers know the link and the information so they can do their little self-assessment. So we look forward to getting some more information on diabetes, because there's so much more.
Diabetes, as I said, it's a tsunami. There's a plethora of information on the Diabetes Australia website. But yes, there is so much more to learn. And I have found that when people come to me, and even if they've had diabetes for about 10 or 20 years, they still have a new thing to learn.
So it's a bit about knowledge is power, isn't it?
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. Absolutely.
Well, we're going to be getting some more knowledge from you very shortly. Thanks, Camilla.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching our TV show. Be sure to hit subscribe and then you'll never miss an episode. Jump on Facebook, join our group, get in on the fun, fitness, wellness and inspiration. I'm Carol, over 50. So what?